Hello, bookworms! Today I'm going to be sharing my February wrap-up. I feel like I read a lot in February, but the number of books that I read is actually a lot lower than usual, and it's because I read a lot of much larger books. I have 11 books to talk about and 9 volumes of manga, and then we've got some TV shows, some movies, and one game. I actually really liked last month's format, so I think I'm going to do the same thing where I stick to grouping the books together by genre. I think that it worked really well, like it just kind of flowed a little bit better, and I also liked breaking it up into sections and being able to share some other things outside of books that I also consume during the month. So we're going to just continue forward, and I think that's going to be our 2024 wrap-up format. So once again, starting with fantasy, which actually I'm going to kind of talk about sci-fi fantasy. So the first book is Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruicchio. I just absolutely fell in love with this book. I thought that it was so excellently written. I really loved Hadrian as a character. He's definitely problematic, but he is a really good example of a character that grows after they have different experiences. He grows up very wealthy on a planet, and he's kind of anticipating inheriting his father's empire, but then his father makes a different decision, kind of wants to ship him off to become what's essentially like a priest, and Hadrian does not want that, so he escapes, and then you get to see all of the different things that happen to him. He has quite the story. This book kind of reminded me of Name of the Wind just because of the story structure. At the very beginning, we find out the end of Hadrian's story, and Hadrian is now recounting everything that happened, and it also kind of makes him a little bit of an unreliable narrator because he is the one that is retelling his story, so obviously these are the things the way that he remembered them. He does sometimes contest the way that the story is told, and he tells his perspective of it. I truly felt like this was an exceptional character study. As much as I really enjoyed the world and the different planets, the different cultures that we see, it was really Hadrian as a character that I was very invested in, so that just worked really well for me. I'm so excited to continue the series, and this is also a prime example of me buying a book before reading it, and now this hardcover is like pretty much impossible to find, and I'm so glad that I was able to get it early because I could foresee this becoming a favorite series just based on how much I loved this book. I think also why this worked so heavily in my favor is because of some of the other books that I'm going to talk about, and I'm trying to think of like a nice way to put this. I just reread everything by Sarah J. Maas. I definitely prefer her earlier books, and the latter ones are very heavy on the smut and the romance, and I also read a couple of romance reads, a couple of thrillers, and my brain just was like craving something with more substance. I really enjoy like other books that I read. I'm not saying that those books are not valuable, but my brain just like wanted a challenge. This is a more dense adult fantasy novel, and it gave me exactly what I wanted. So even I would say some of the parts that are a little bit slower, I was still so invested, and having the option, because I'm usually reading 2 books at a time, I was constantly like, I just want to read Empire of Silence. Like, I'm really not interested in picking up anything else that I'm reading at the moment. So I loved this one. I was trying to tell my friend Alexa like how I felt about it, and I was like, my head says that it's a 4-star book, but my heart says that it's 5 stars, and I think I'm going to go with my heart and give this one 5 stars. I truly loved it, and I definitely recommend reading it. Then I'm just going to very briefly mention these 2 books because I'm still in the middle of reading them. So first I have The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. I am about 60% of the way into this book. I'm really loving it. I really like the dynamic between Wax and Wayne. I think it's a lot of fun. I will definitely give you my full thoughts in my March wrap-up. I really was hoping that I was going to be able to finish it before I sat down to film my February wrap-up, but it just didn't happen. I was way too busy, and my mind was so tired because work has been insane. So I didn't get to read as much as I wanted over the past week, but I'm very thoroughly enjoying this one. And I'm also really enjoying The Bone Season. I think I am 200 pages into The Bone Season right now, so I still have a little bit of a ways to go with this one, but I'm finding the world to be really interesting, and I'm liking how things are kind of unfolding before me, and I'm curious to see where the story is going to go. I'm really glad that I started reading this one because just a couple of days afterward, the Broken Binding announced their edition of The Mime Murder, which is the next book in the series. So having read 200 pages, I was able to confidently say that I will continue the series. So I was able to grab a copy of that. But again, you'll get full thoughts on this next month. Then I read House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. And while I did really enjoy this one, I did have some issues with it. One of the main ones being that there's this like super secret thing that is happening throughout the book that our characters become entwined with, and like their lives are on the line if they are found to be involved with this at all. But they all are like, I'm just gonna tell everyone what's happening. Like every single person in their little group told at least like 1 to 2 other people, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, keep it quiet. Aren't you guys concerned about your lives? So that like drove me a little bit crazy, because I was like, there's just no way that if all of these people knew everything going on, that someone higher up wouldn't immediately find out about it. But overall, I did enjoy it. There was one reveal that I saw coming a bit early on, but it was fun to watch it unfold. And then I also knew what the big spoiler at the end of this book was going to be, because Sarah J. Maas actually spoiled it on her own Instagram page. I knew to expect that. And honestly, that is why I picked this up, because I am not as invested in the Crescent City books as I was in, say, Throne of Glass or the early ACOTAR books. Because of that thing, I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I wanted to read them before House of Flame and Shadow came out so that I could read that along with everyone. And thankfully I was able to do that. But I liked this book. I didn't love it like I love Sarah's other books, but I still thought that it was a fun time. Which brings us to House of Flame and Shadow. So this was Sarah's newest book. This is technically the conclusion to the Crescent City series. It's not the end of what we're going to be getting in that world, according to some interviews that I watched with Sarah, but it is the end of Bryson Hunt's story. This book was kind of interesting. And so one of the things that actually bothered me in both the last book and this book is that they are very heavy on the smutty scenes. And while those definitely can be fun to read, it was very jarring to go from end of the world, high stakes kind of situation to a sex scene and like constantly be flip-flopping back and forth. And then because we're getting so many different perspectives, we're getting so many sex scenes from so many different couples, and it's just a lot. Like I felt like it could have been edited down so much and been a couple of 100 pages shorter and would have been just as effective as this 900, 800 page book. So again, like while I did like it, I just didn't love it. It was not one of my favorites by Sarah by any means. And yeah, I just really miss like the days of Throne of Glass. That is like, in my opinion, Sarah's golden age. But I will still read anything that she puts out because I do really like her world and her characters. It's really the characters that kept me going. I do feel like there was a lot of things that were pretty convenient in here. My friend Alexa and I both read House of Sky and Breath and House of Flame and Shadow like basically together. So that I think really enhanced my reading experience because we were constantly texting each other back and forth about everything that was happening, and that was so much fun. I don't think that I would have enjoyed it as much without that element of my reading experience. And then I concluded my reread of all of Sarah's books with A Court of Silver Flames. This is the last book that's currently out in the ACOTAR series, and this one follows Nesta. I like this book, and the reason I like this book is because I love Cassian. I like Nesta a lot, like very much, but I love Cassian, and that is really what like propelled me through. Nesta is a really tough character to read from because she is so prickly and she really does make a lot of decisions that you're just like, why, Nesta? Like, why are you doing this? Like, it's explained, you understand it, but it's also still frustrating. I mentioned last month, but I listened to these on audio. I listened to the graphic audio versions on Audible, and those are an experience. But it was fun. I'm glad that I did it. But I am really glad to be moving on and to finally be tackling my physical TBR, because that was my main goal for 2024, is to get my physical TBR down. And then I just reread like everything Sarah J. Maas, and that definitely impeded my progress. So the next category that I'm going to talk about are thrillers. First up, I read First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, and I was really excited for this one. I have really enjoyed all of Ashley's YA books. I love her YA thriller books. I think that they're incredibly well written, and this is her first adult book, so I was pretty eager to pick this one up. However, I didn't love it. We're following a character who has a fake identity, and she's employed by someone. We don't know exactly why she is where she is, what her end game is, but we learn more and more about her as the story progresses. And I just thought that like a big chunk of it was kind of boring. I obviously did read the whole thing. I wanted to know, what was going to happen. But if Ashley Elston hadn't written it, I don't know that I would have finished it. I am glad that I did. I did like the ending, but I just thought that it was very middling, and I gave this one 3 stars. Then I read The Last Word by Taylor Adams, and this one I actually didn't like. We are following a character who is staying at this very remote beach house, and she reads a horrible book, gives it a 1-star review, and the author starts writing to her telling her you better take down your 1-star review. And she's like, no, I am entitled to post my opinion online. And the author tries to make her feel bad and is like, if other people see this, they're not going to pick up my book, and then I won't be able to be a full-time writer, and basically blaming her for something that would not be her fault. And anyway, somebody starts showing up around her house. She knows, she has this feeling that it's the author. So the reason that I didn't enjoy this one as much is because I didn't like the writing style. I do feel like it was extremely simplistic, which is often the case for thrillers, but it was just, in my opinion, I don't think it was the most well written. And then I also felt like it was super predictable. I could tell really early on what was going on with the whole situation. I kept reading till the end. It was pretty ridiculous, but I just kept going because I was like, why not finish this? So I did, but I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. Oh, then I actually left it upstairs, but I am also in the middle of reading They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, which is another thriller. And this one I actually am enjoying so far. It is set at a college, and we are following a female professor who goes after the men in her college that need to be taught a lesson, and she picks a man that she feels is exceptionally bad, and she kills them. And so far, that one's a lot of fun. I'm excited to finish that one, but I'll give you my full thoughts next month. So as you can see, I kind of I read a lot of books, but I also read half of a lot of books. So it just didn't amount to as many as I normally read. But moving on to the next category, which is nonfiction. First, I listened to One in a Millennial by Kate Kennedy on audiobook, and I really loved this one. I found this to be incredibly relatable. It is all about the millennial experience growing up, everything that we went through as kids, and every kind of pop culture that really appealed to us, the kinds of messages that we were sent. It kind of gave insight into why some of us are the way that we are, and I just thought it was really fun. It's full of really awesome puns, and I just love the way that Kate's brain works. She has a podcast as well, which I've listened to a little bit, and she just has a knack for equating pop culture into real life, to making those references, to again making the really good puns, and I just had a blast. There were some things that I didn't relate to, she grew up in a very religious area, which I didn't have that experience, but for the majority of the rest of it, I just felt it was very relatable. She talked about the early days of AOL Instant Messenger, and the different shows that we watched, and it was just a blast. And then the other nonfiction book that I listened to was So Fetch, The Making of Mean Girls by Jennifer Kenshin Armstrong. And this was another one that I thought was really fun. I'm a huge fan of Mean Girls, the original movie, and I'm really glad that I got to listen to it. So one of the funniest things about this book is that right off in the introduction, they actually called out my high school as being a horrible place to go to high school, because I went to high school with Lindsay Lohan for a little while, and she talked about how our high school was so horrible and she was bullied so much, and that's why she accepted the role of Katie in Mean Girls, because she felt it was so relatable. So that right off the bat was just wildly entertaining for me. But then moving on, it did go through the entire casting process, all of the behind the scenes of making the movie. I feel these kinds of books have become really popular recently. We've been seeing an influx of them. I just read one for the OC. I think a lot of pop culture, nostalgia nostalgic pop culture shows have just been getting the making of books with behind the scenes cast and crew interviews, and I'm loving them all. I'm really enjoying it. So I had a lot of fun listening to this one, and it wasn't like, I don't think it was the best one that I've read yet, but I did really enjoy it. Then moving on to romance. The first book that I read was Butcher and Blackbird by Brynn Weaver, and this book was incredibly unhinged. I never thought that I would read something like this, and I'm still processing my feelings about it. I was entertained. There's no doubt that I was entertained. It was not a good book, but I was entertained. We are following two characters who are serial killers, and they have a meet cute over a dead body, and then they end up starting this game where they like once a year meet up with each other and they pick a target, and whoever finds and kills that target first is the winner of the year. But they kind of slowly fall in love with each other, and the number of trigger warnings for this book is like off the charts. So definitely look those up if you have any issues with trigger warnings, because there will be something in this book that will affect you. It's a lot. But again, it was fun. It was fun enough that I will continue. I will read the next book, but I don't know why. And then the other romance book that I read is Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This is my first Elsie Silver book. It's the first book in the Gold Rush Ranch series. I'm really excited to have finally started these because my friends have been telling me forever that I need to read Elsie's writing, and now I can say that I have. So I will definitely be continuing the series. In this first one, we were following a guy who is in charge of his family's ranch, and then a girl who comes in order to train one of the horses that's going to be racing. I thought it was really cute. I really liked the romance between the two characters. I thought it was a lot of fun. It packed a little bit of an emotional punch, and it was just really fun, like getting to spend so much time with the horses. I was able to predict really early on who the next books are going to follow, which I always find to be really fun. So this was just like a quick, easy palate cleanser kind of read. I'm really glad that I read it, and I'm excited to continue. It's not an all-time favorite romance for me, but I thought it was enjoyable. Oh gosh, I just left every book upstairs, so I'm just gonna, sorry, editing Kristen. So moving on to manga, I mentioned last month that I read the first volume of the Savior's Book Cafe story in Another World. Well, in February, I read volumes 2 to 5, which completes the series. So I really enjoyed this one overall. This is a fantasy romance series. It's set in this super cute, quaint little town where it snows all the time, and there is a threat from outside forces. So there's a girl that gets sent there to be a savior. It's an isekai. She is transported to this world from contemporary Japan, and she ends up opening up a bookshop instead of going and like trying to fight monsters, and she finds her own kind of quiet way to help take care of the town, and it's really cute. She ends up falling in love with the captain of the guard, and they have a super cute romance, and I just thought that it was so much fun. She's always like making potions and making healing foods and stuff, and she has come up with like really subtle ways of using magic to enhance her bookstore. I just thought it was so great. Like, I really loved it. And again, it's only 5 volumes, so it's a really quick read, and it's nice that it's completed, and I'm very glad that I read this one this year. One of my new obsessions, which I think you guys are going to be excited about, is I read volumes 1 through 4 of One Piece, and I immediately fell in love with it. I was really unsure of how I was going to feel about it because I am usually not a huge shonen reader, but I just immediately loved it. I love pirates, so I guess I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was, but I loved like the introduction, getting to meet Luffy as a little kid, seeing how insistent he is upon becoming the new king of the pirates and finding this treasure that was left behind by the old king of the pirates. And very early on in the book, he eats something called the gum gum fruit, and he's basically like rubber. He can stretch and everything, but he cannot swim, which is obviously not good if you're a pirate and you're going to be on the ocean like all the time. But he does not let that get in his way. He is still hell-bent on fulfilling his goal. And so far in the first couple of volumes, he's been going out and meeting new characters and kind of cultivating his crew of pirates, and it has been so fun. I think that the series just has so much heart. I'm like so early into it, so I know that there's just so much more to come, but I think it's just such a great sign because I'm already loving it so much. And then I also read Witch Hat Atelier Volume 11, which is the most recent volume of the series. So now I am all caught up again for when the next volume comes out, which will hopefully be at some point this year. This is a really fun Studio Ghibli-esque series. We're following really young apprentices who are training to become like full-blown witches. And where they are in the story now, they're at this festival. So they were trying to create a spell in order to display to this town. And they're just really like whimsical and really fun. And I just love the art style in them. I would say it's not my favorite manga series. Like, while I do enjoy it, I'm never like, oh my god, I'm dying for the next volume like I am for, say, like One Piece. But it is a really like solid series and it's a good staple, and I always enjoy every volume that I do read. Okay, then moving on to TV and movies. So I actually found 2 new like all-time favorite TV shows this month, which has been so exciting because I feel like it's been a while since I've like really loved something on TV. I like the last show that I remember really loving is The Last of Us, which was obviously like a while ago. Okay, here we go. So the first show that I'm going to talk about is Has Been Hotel. I love this. It is an animated show. It's on Amazon and it is full of Broadway actors and actresses. So it was basically like an IMDb who's who. Like every single time that there was a new voice, I would be like, I know that voice. And I would have to look it up and see what play I saw them in. It was so much fun. The basic premise of the show is that Lucifer's daughter has opened this hotel in hell, and she's kind of trying to give people like a second chance so that they can become better people. It was so heartwarming, and the cast of characters is so incredible. I love the art style. I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack is really like what makes this show. Truly, like everything about it was just so amazing. And Andrew also just completely fell in love with it. So I'm actually going to bring him out here to tell you his feelings on it too. But if you are a theater kid, you need to watch this show. Like, you will not regret it. It's only 8 episodes. They're like 20 minutes each. And I am starved for season 2. Like, I need to know where the story is going to go. I love these characters. So here is Andrew. As I mentioned, he has become obsessed with Has Been Hotel. So I thought that it would also be fun to let him share his opinion along with my review, which I just gave you.
I wanted to argue obsessed, but I've listened to the soundtrack too many times.
There's no arguing.
Yeah, there's no arguing.
It's really good.
I wasn't here. What did you say about it? Okay. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a great Broadway cast. It's hysterical. I love that it's animated because they could do more with it than they probably would have been able to do with real people.
Definitely. I love the animation style too. Like it's there's a lot of red, obviously, because we're in hell. Like red, black, and white are the heaviest colors.
Yeah, the first episode is the worst, is the weakest. It's not bad. It's just
I liked it immediately, and it took you to the second episode.
I thought it was kind of crass, and I thought it was just trying to be, gross and curse a lot. And by the end, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much lore and built upon like actual religion, I guess mostly. And the characters are interesting, and there's theories to be drawn, and definitely obsessed with Alistair, the character.
Me too.
Like, what is his deal? What's going on? But it's all a mystery. It's intentionally a mystery that you have to watch in season 2. There is a season 2, right? Yeah,
it's not out yet, but when it initially got picked up by Amazon, it was picked up for 2 seasons. Unfortunately, the first season just premiered like from January through February, so I don't know how long it'll be before season 2 comes out, but they are at least like actively working on it.
And I was confused about that because I felt like I recognized characters from fan art and cosplay I see online. And it's because the pilot was created in 2019 independently by the creator, and it has a cult following leading up to the Amazon premiere. But they also have an online show called Hell of a Boss, which is different. It does have music. All the characters are different, but it's set in hell, just like this. And I watched through that. And it was fun. It's not It's not Has Been Hotel. It's not as good.
I haven't watched that.
Not as good. It's different. The characters are not as charming and fun and upbeat musical, and a little bit more real, I guess. You know, things are rougher around the edges in that show. Kind of like what I thought the first episode was. But yeah, I love it. I'm obsessed.
So watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. Now what?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the other new favorite show of all time is, I was going to say completely different, but it also does have that theater kid energy that I love. And that is Game Changer, which is a show on Dropout. Andrew's sister got Andrew a 1-month subscription to Dropout for Christmas like a couple of years ago, and we're finally using it. And we literally watched all 5 seasons of Game Changer in like 2 weeks. It's so much fun. So the premise of that show is that it is a game show, but the game show changes every single episode. So there will be 3 contestants that come out, and none of them know what game they're playing, what the rules are, anything. They have to kind of learn the game as they go. Some of them are more similar to shows that you would recognize, like there's a Bachelor episode, there's a Survivor episode, but then there are also like a lot of made up games, and it's just such a blast. And I've come to like really appreciate the people. Oh my gosh, there's a musical episode that's so good. There's a Shakespeare episode that's so good. But I've just come to like be in awe of the talent of these people, and I am so excited to watch everything else on Dropout because like I love them all. Like they're all just so great. We've already started watching like a couple of the other shows, and I'm also really excited to check out Dimension 20, which is the D&D shows that are run. I think most of them are Brennan Lee Mulligan who is running them, but he's definitely like involved in a lot of them. I think they have quite like a few now, but I'm really, really excited to watch those too. I love Game Changer. I've always loved game shows, so this has been like such a blast. And there is a season that takes place during 2020, so all of those are virtual episodes. And even despite the challenge of like not being able to put on an in-person episode, they still, I felt like, did a great job. Those are definitely the weakest episodes of Game Changer thus far, but I still had so much fun watching them. So yeah, totally recommend Game Changer. And then the one movie that we'll talk about is that we went and we saw Argylle, and I had kind of like mixed feelings on this one. I thought that the beginning, like the first like 70% of the movie I thought was really fun and I was really enjoying it, but then the end of it was pretty crazy and like just so drawn out. I think it could have been edited down so much, and it was so over the top cheesy, like ridiculous, that it really like detracted from the rest of the movie. So there was a lot that I did like about it, but then there was also a lot that I was just like, wow, it's supposed to be a satire on spy movies. And there was also like a wild theory going around that it was written by Taylor Swift, but that has since been debunked, and it was also like a pretty thin theory. I'm glad that we saw it, but I didn't love it, and it's like not something that I would see again. And if there were to be a second movie, I would not run out to see it in theaters. And then the last thing that I'm going to mention is games. So Andrew and I started playing Tunic, which is this really cute little game with a fox, and he is adorable. It's kind of like Legend of Zelda-esque, and you're basically like thrown into this fantasy world with no instruction or anything. You just have to kind of move throughout it. The first thing that you have is like a little stick, and you have to try to beat these little like circular blobs that come after you. As you are progressing through the game, there are these little sparkly rectangles that you find, and each piece that you acquire gives you a little bit more of the instruction booklet for the game so that you can get a better idea of what's going on. We still don't fully know what's going on. There have been some really like interesting cutscenes so far. I really love like the look of the game, but I'm not enjoying it anywhere near as much as Andrew is. Andrew definitely likes that kind of like dungeon crawler puzzle kind of game, and that's just not the thing for me. Like, and I also think that I just loved Hades so much that it's going to be really hard for me to find a game that even compares this year. So we've kind of like, in the beginning I was playing it, and now we've kind of switched. Like Andrew is the one that is doing the controls, and I'm kind of sitting next to him reading One Piece, but then also like looking to see what's going on the screen. So I'm curious about the story. I'm curious to see like where it's going, but just don't feel like it was like the game for me to play. Like it wasn't my cup of tea. So that is everything that I read and watched and played this month. Let me know if you have consumed any of the things that I've mentioned, or let me know any of your favorite like TV shows or games or books that you've read this month. And that is all that I have for this video. So I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!